So if you think that E standard tuning is just how the guitar is supposed to be tuned, I have some news. Some of the most influential guitarists in rock history might actually disagree with you. While the most widely used guitar tuning is E standard, many guitarists, including some of the greatest to ever do it, tune their guitars down just one half step or a semitone to E flat standard tuning. In E flat standard, everything you've learned, the chords, the open string guitar licks, still work just like they do in E standard. Everything's just down a half step. In this video, I'm giving you 5 reasons players do this somewhat subtle but impactful technique. This spans many different types of rock music and beyond: classic rock, blues, metal, hard rock, grunge, alternative, and a few of the most notable artists who use this tuning to varying degrees include Hendrix, Stevie, Vaughan, Nirvana, Guns N' Roses, Weezer, Van Halen, Motörhead, Metallica, Alice in Chains, Smashing Pumpkins. There are almost endless artists I didn't mention just because we'd be here all day otherwise. Still, you get the idea. E-flat tuning is widely used. But why? What is it about dropping a guitar's tuning just one half step that makes it so popular? Reason number 1, the sound. The lower you tune a guitar, the heavier it can sound. This is why doom metal bands often tune down to B or even lower. It's why 7-string guitars become so popular with nu metal players back in the 90s. But even pitched down just one semitone, there's a more subtle, low-end kick that you won't get in E standard tuning. So pick your favorite song in an E-flat tuning and then play it on your own guitar in E standard, or you can hop on YouTube and find the standard tuning versions of the same song. They're everywhere, and you'll notice a small difference. The E-flat versions just have a little bit more oomph. As an added bonus, if you do like heavier sounds and you often tune your low E string to D, which gives you a drop D tuning, things sound even heavier if you're in E-flat standard and you tune down to drop C sharp. Reason number 2 is playability. If you take the same guitar with the same strings and you tune it down one half step, the strings loosen just enough to make a noticeable difference, especially when you're bending or you're using vibrato. It just feels more comfortable for a lot of players, myself included.
Some guys like them loose and some guys like them tight.
When I spend a lot of time playing in an E-flat standard tuning and I need to tune back up to E standard, everything just feels a little tighter and somewhat more constrained. You'll often hear that Stratocasters are at their best when they're tuned down a half step, and that makes sense because it's a slightly longer scale length than most Gibson guitars. So a longer scale length means more tension in the strings, even when tuned the same as shorter scale guitars. Now, granted, a lot of guitars have the same scale length as a Strat, so that same logic can also apply to Telecasters or other Fender guitars like Jazzmasters. But when you think of the types of players who use Stratocasters, like Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan, remember that so many of those styles involve the heavy use of bends and vibrato, and again, that's where E-flat standard tuning shines. Sort of a bonus point here, I should also add that if a player wants to use heavier gauge strings because they like the sound of those heavier gauge strings, tuning down also makes it easier to accommodate that particular preference. Reason 3. Accommodating vocal ranges. Though every vocalist has their own range, in some cases, especially when a singer is hitting the higher end of the register, dropping the key of a song to E-flat can make the lower tuning a little less demanding on the vocal cords. For example, this is common as vocalists age and those higher notes get harder to hit. Songs that were originally written in a given key get lowered over time to make them easier to sing for this very reason. Reason number 4. Accommodating other instruments. So a slightly less common reason, though perfectly still valid, to tune down to E-flat standard is to make life easier for horn sections. So horns are in a different key than stringed instruments. If a band is playing a song in E, then a trumpet player, for example, will be playing in F sharp, which is a little less natural and less intuitive than playing in F if you're a trumpet player. If you're a guitar player, imagine having to play a song in A flat without having a capo. The instrument just becomes more awkward for a lot of players. So tuning down to E flat can make things a little more welcoming for brass players. Reason 5. It becomes your default. So reason 5 is tied to all the other reasons we've already spoken about. Once you start performing and even writing songs in E flat standard tuning, it becomes much easier just to stay in that tuning instead of changing guitars or changing tunings between songs. So once you have a handful of songs in E flat, it's tempting to just keep every song in that key as long as it doesn't conflict with the needs of vocalists or other instruments. If you're a guitarist who spends a lot of time in E flat standard tuning, I want to hear from you. Please leave a comment. Why do you tune down half a step? If you're a guitarist who hasn't spent much time in E flat, I do think it's worth checking out. The only real downside that I can think of is if you play along with a lot of songs that aren't in an E flat standard tuning, you'll either want a guitar dedicated to being a step lower or just being okay with changing tunings as needed. And honestly, it's not that big of a hassle as long as your action on your guitar isn't so low that you introduce a lot of string buzzing when you tune down. If you like this video, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We do a lot of guitar talk videos, but we also do deep dives into our favorite albums and artists. So if that sounds like your thing, don't miss what's coming up. We're covering Fugazi's The Argument and Shame's Drunk Tank Pink soon, right alongside the kind of records we've already dug into, like Television's Marquee Moon and Modest Mouse's Good News for people who like bad news. So subscribe and make sure that you don't miss those.